Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen lies about me and my family on TikTok. After that, boyfriend expects me to move into a house without being a co-owner. And after that, am I the jerk for telling my ex he and his wife need to stop fostering kids? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets kicked off of TikTok. TikTok? Oh, poor me. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen lies about me and my family on TikTok. When I, 28 female, first met my sister-in-law, Anne, who's 30, I heard about her having a TikTok account based around looking after her old and disabled cats, but I don't use TikTok, so I never checked it out. That was until my husband's niece asked to meet for coffee to talk. At first, she asked me how I was doing mentally and what I had against my brother's girlfriend, Anne. I was beyond clueless because I thought me and Anne, were okay relationship-wise. Now don't get me wrong, I haven't spoken to her much because I'm extremely busy, but other than that, I couldn't think of anything. She pulled out her phone and showed me multiple TikToks of Anne telling her followers about my Just No family. I'll just list a few things. My mother being so proud of a Just No mother-in-law, they had to get a restraining order against her. I demanded my kids play with her cats and had a tantrum when she said no. I'm a nurse, so you know I've seen what happens when kids play with animals that they shouldn't. I'm dependent on my brother and demand he gives me all of his time and money. Me and my mother call everything she does in life shameful because she's not modest or religious like us. The last and worst is that I'm anti-everything, which as a nurse could have cost me my job. I ended up making an account, downloaded all the videos, and sent them to the family group chat. You can imagine what happened next, but instead of giving an answer, both my brother and sister-in-law blocked everyone. Anyone in my family who had the app followed her cat account, but were blocked on her main. My cousin ended up making a TikTok debunking her videos, but her account was already gone. My brother ended up calling me, screaming down the phone about his girlfriend having an anxiety attack, and I should have come to them first. Apparently, he said she makes up those stories for views so she can become a creator, and it also helps with her anxiety. He said if anything ever got out of hand, they would go on the record about it being made up. Not the jerk. She doesn't get to rip apart everybody's reputation with made-up stories for popularity. It would be one thing if it was fake people, but it's clear that she's giving away enough information that it's getting back to the people she's lying about. Agreed. Also, pretty sure OP and family could sue for defamation and slander if this is in the US. I'm really hoping OP is in the US, just in case the sister-in-law tries any of this crap again. How big of them to offer to come clean if anything got out of hand? And when would that have happened? After OP was facing discipline for this? The truth is that it already did get out of hand. The moment OP's niece saw the TikToks, it had gotten out of hand. I figure either OP's brother never considered that there are people outside of his family that would see these and bring them to people's attention, or he didn't know his significant other was doing this and is just scrambling to do damage control in an effort to protect her. Not the jerk. What was her plan if you lost your job because of her lies and then sued her for libel? OP. I asked my brother about that and he couldn't answer me. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for showing the TikToks to her family or not? Please let us know. I'd cut out both brother and sister-in-law. He's enabling her to do all this madness. But don't worry, he'll reap what he sows. Eventually, he's gonna be the one she turns on. Boyfriend expects me to move into a house without being a co-owner. I, 27 female, have been with Ben, 29 male, for 1.5 years. We agreed if we got married, we'd have a prenup and keep our finances separate. He was clear from day one he would never want to combine them. Ben bought a 5-bedroom house. He lives with friends and calculates their rent by dividing the mortgage by the number of people living in the house. His mortgage is high in part because it's a 15-year mortgage. He had a bad credit score and his down payment was small. This also doesn't give Ben any money to maintain the house. He uses credit cards and payday loans for urgent house repairs. Ben doesn't agree with my decision to prioritize my savings over paying off my subsidized student loans, things he thinks I should stop doing until I'm debt-free. I contribute to a 401k to maximize an employer match benefit. My checking and savings have 6 months of income. I'm building an investment account I might eventually use to buy a house. Ben has suggested I drain these accounts and use the money for debt repayment. He thinks I need to be more like him. At the end of the month, all of his extra money goes towards debt. He doesn't seem to care about the amount of debt I have, just that it exists, and I could be paying it off faster.
Oh God, is this guy one of those Dave Ramsey nuts?
I take it you don't like Dave Ramsey?
The guy doesn't even know what Bitcoin is.
Recently, Ben has been saying it's a waste of money for us to have two places and suggested I move in with him. We don't stay at his house often because of his roommates. I don't like his house and would rather keep my apartment. He argues the money I spend on rent is money we could be saving. I wouldn't be saving money, and I'd need to buy a car. The house is expensive for reasons I wouldn't benefit from, and it's big. I don't want to live with someone unless we are renting a place together or own a place together. I'm uncomfortable with him being the sole owner of the house we live in. He'd control how much we both have to spend on housing and what changes and upgrades are made. I want us to contribute equally and have an equal say in the decisions. He says we can't rent a place together because paying rent is money down the drain. And we can never own a house together because we agreed to have separate finances. I thought separate finances meant we could eventually buy a house as long as we split the down payment and mortgage 50-50. He thinks owning a house together is combining finances. I said that's fine. He can someday move into a house that I own. He said that was ridiculous, as I don't know when I'll be ready to buy a house. He said I have no valid reason for refusing to live in a house just because he owns it, and this would force him to either go back to renting or combine finances with me. He especially doesn't want to co-own a house with me because I'm irresponsible with debt. Am I the jerk for agreeing to separate finances and now being unwilling to live in a house I don't own? He just told you that you two are incompatible financially, not the jerk, and it's time to seriously consider the longevity of this relationship. OP. Yeah, I just feel bad because when we started dating, he checked if I was okay with separate finances. It seemed like we were compatible at the time. Now it feels like I'm changing my mind and I'm not okay with that situation. Should I have known that separate finances means we can't own or rent a home together? Absolutely not. You didn't change your mind. You offered a solution that would keep you both at even equity. He wants you to move in with him to help him relieve his poor debt choices. Edit to add, not the jerk. OP. My assumption of separate finances still included us owning a house together. I could give him a lump sum to match the equity he already owned in the house. We could use the money to remodel or refinance the mortgage. He'd add my name to the deed. After that, we'd split the mortgage evenly. I'd even be willing to pay more than 50% of the mortgage because I suspect I make more money than him. That's based on his job and what he said about his finances. I'm also willing to pay more for the things that matter to me that he doesn't care about. For example, he doesn't care that the carpet smells like cat pee. If my name was on the deed, I'd be willing to pay for it myself. Or I could pay more so we could afford to not have roommates. Make no mistake, he's counting on you paying for doing stuff like that without your name ever being on the house. OP. I don't even know yet if he'd let me make this improvement. I don't want to live in the house without certain improvements being made that he can't afford. I'm sort of backing him into a corner where if he wants to live with me, he has to accept a level of financial entanglement. Because of my debt, he might be right to object to that. He has a bad credit score. He takes out payday loans, which have extremely high interest rates. He has no savings. Otherwise, he wouldn't be taking out terrible payday loans. On the other hand, you are very responsible financially, and you want to be involved financially with this man. Why? The number one reason why couples argue is money. You're setting yourself up to be quite unhappy. I would rethink your plans. I don't know if you saw, but in OP's post, she said she's bad with money, something he's implied due to her debt, and she believes it from what she has said. Yet she's actually more financially sensible than he is, especially as her credit score is much better than his while being in debt. It suggests she at least keeps up with all her payments. He sounds horrible, as if he's trying to corner her into living with him on his terms, while she's trying to compromise and go 50-50. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
Dave Ramsey says the most common reasons for divorce involve fights about finances, your kids, and about your in-laws. You really have to be on the same page for these things to work out.
Karen, I thought you didn't like Dave Ramsey.
Oh, he's okay. We just disagree on a few things.
Am I the jerk for telling my ex he and his wife need to stop fostering kids? My ex-husband is remarried to a very nice woman, Vanessa. They've been together for 8 years. While my ex-husband and I have 3 kids together, who are 12, 14, and 17, Vanessa isn't able to have any biologically. She's been an amazing stepmom to my kids, and I feel safe with them going there every other week. However, Over the past 5 years that they've been married, Vanessa and my ex have fostered kids in hopes to adopt. They fostered a baby for 3 years from the time she came home to the hospital, and she ended up reunited with her family. It was extremely hard on the kids, as well as my ex and Vanessa. Immediately after, they began fostering another kid who was 5 years old and were supposed to adopt them. Right before Christmas, he was reunited with his biological father that they originally had no information on. This has been incredibly hard for the kids. They're devastated and started going to therapy after their first foster sister was removed from the home. Recently, my older two came to me and said they cannot take another loss. They keep getting very attached to these foster siblings and to only have them ripped away. It's not the fault of their dad or stepmom, and it's also amazing that these kids get to stay with their biological family, the goal of foster care. But it doesn't change how hard it is on them. They told me that their dad and stepmom have been talking about taking on a new placement in the new year and have said they won't live with their father if they do so. They had tried talking to him, but all they got was, "It's the reality of foster care." I went to my ex and Vanessa to talk about the kids. They kept saying that this is the reality of foster care, that it hurts them too, but they feel they're at least offering a loving and safe home to these kids. I asked, what about the kids that they have already? My ex-husband's argument is that they'll be off to college soon. I asked why they can't at least wait for the older two to leave the home, and they asked, what if Vanessa got pregnant? Would they get to control that? I argued that would be different. That's not a sibling they'd risk losing. I ultimately said what the kids did. If they continued to foster, our elder kids would choose to not come around as much, and I'd support them in court. If our youngest wanted to keep up the custody agreement, that's fine, but I'd keep them in therapy. My ex called me and said Vanessa has been sobbing all weekend after my threat. He says it's not fair to ask this of them and make them decide. I told him it's up to him to decide what he could live with. Am I the jerk? Edit. I thought it was clear, but my ex and his wife have them every other week. We alternate holidays and such. Edit 2. Many people keep asking if my kids understand what fostering means. They do. They understand the logistics of fostering. That doesn't mean they can help their emotions. Their therapist has said they are traumatized by these events. Edit 3. Potentially the final update. I did reach out to my ex and his wife. I apologized for telling them that they shouldn't foster again, as that part is none of my business. I did share that I feel it might be beneficial for the two of them and the kids to see a family therapist or mediator so all sides can be heard. They actually agreed that it's a good idea and they're going to find a different therapist just so there's no bias, which I support. What happens from this point is beyond my control and business. I am hopeful that my kids can continue to have a strong and healthy relationship with their father and stepmother. To those that said my kids should naturally be stronger or doubted their trauma, I sincerely hope you do more research and learn that needing therapy doesn't make you weak or spoiled. It helps with coping strategies and gives a safe place to talk about their feelings. To those that accused me of being jealous or bitter, no, I'm remarried with another kid. I'm happy for them and wish them nothing but happiness and peace in the future. Not the jerk. Firstly, they should not be going into fostering with the sole intention of adopting, unless they are specifically taking in only kids who have already had the goal of their case changed to adoption, which doesn't seem to be the case here. The goal of foster care is always first and foremost reunification. Adoption should only become the goal where absolutely necessary. They're going to struggle to be good advocates for those kids when their goal is to take that kid away from their family. I also assume their skewed goal is impacting what they're telling your kids and leading to your kids taking the reunification much harder. Secondly, wanting to help kids in need should not and cannot come at the deficit of the well-being of your existing kids. You are right to stand up for your kids. OP says in the comments that their goal was supposed to be adoption for both kids and relatives were discovered after they were placed. Also, the post and comments indicate that they are aware of and understand that the process will inherently involve kids getting reunited with their family, and they're willing to accept that. While your second point has merit, your first is crucifying them based on an incorrect assumption. Not the jerk. What they're doing is amazing, but here's the thing. It's hard on your kids, and as their parent, it's your job to advocate for them. You're right that your ex and Vanessa can foster later. They're doing a good thing for those kids who they foster. It's just hard for their own kids. Not the jerk. Your kids sound like they're hurting a lot. I can't imagine it's been easy for them, and it sounds like their therapist is agreeing with the kids that it's been really hurting them. They said they talked to their dad about it and it got nowhere. You aren't butting into a stranger's business. These are your kids, and they asked you, their mother, to intervene. No matter what all the "you're the jerks" are saying here, you're actually responsible for the mental health of your kids. And that includes what happens at their other parent's house. You can't stop them from continuing to foster, but you can respect your kids' wishes. Your oldest is past the age where they get legal input for custody agreements. I'm not sure about the 14-year-old. If your kids decide that they need to protect their hearts from another loss, and both they and their therapist think this is the best option, then as their mom, you're doing the right thing. It doesn't make it easy. It's an awful and heartbreaking situation, but your priority isn't your ex's desire to foster or to adopt, no matter how needed good foster parents are. It's the mental health of your kids. It's not pretty, but it is what it is. Well, who do you think is in the right? OP or her ex-husband? Please let us know.
OP is trying to save her kids from having their hearts broken. Dad is being selfish and focusing only on what he and his new wife want.
Evil step-grandmother tries to ruin my Christmas, but I unintentionally ruin hers instead. Cast. We've got my former stepdad, and we've got my former step-grandmother, who we'll call Karen. Karen would even encourage my younger stepsister, who we'll call Anna, to tease and harass me as much as possible, just to provoke me and give Karen more of a reason to torment me. When I was 9 years old, I moved back from Colorado to California to live at Karen's house with my mother and 2 younger siblings, while stepdad stayed back in Colorado for a few more months to finish up his contract in the Army. We were staying there so that my stepdad can save up for us to be able to move out into an apartment together. I absolutely hated living at Karen's house. She made it a goal to make me as miserable as possible while we lived with her. She made sure not to do it in front of my mother either, and would deny everything I would say whenever I would run crying to my mother about it. The sad thing is, my mother believed me but would do nothing about it whatsoever. But that's another story entirely. Karen enforced a bedtime on me without TV, which is realistically understandable in of itself, except for the fact that Anna could stay up and watch TV herself secretly in Karen's room. Just another way for her to mess with me. I had no sense of safety or security in that house. I would stay in my room and away from Karen as much as I possibly could. I wouldn't even go into the kitchen and get food if I was hungry, just because I was afraid. She would be right there ready to mess with me if I wanted something to eat, so I only ate dinner in that house because my mother would be there, and I reluctantly knew that was the only safe chance I had to eat. I still ate at school and everything, but it's a shame I couldn't eat when I wanted to at any point because Karen had placed that much anxiety and stress in me. For the next part of this story, I want to quickly give some context. I fell in love with Pokemon as a kid and would religiously play Yellow version on my Game Boy Pocket every single day. I very badly had been wanting a Game Boy Color since it first came out. Fast forward to Christmas time, we're all opening gifts. My siblings and I all get some toys each for different things we like from mother and stepdad. Next, I open my last gift from Karen, which is some cheap battery-powered Pokemon game that's shaped like a Pokeball with no screen and a bunch of red lights that come in the kind of plastic packaging you need scissors to open all around the edges. Anna opens her last gift from Karen, and it's a green Game Boy Color. I immediately started crying, not because I was ungrateful and expected more. I'm always appreciative with any gifts that I get. It was because I knew for a fact that Karen did that to deliberately get to me. The reason I know this is because Anna didn't play video games ever. She had a Nintendo 64 with a few games, but that thing collected dust until I started living there. Anna didn't even ask for a Game Boy Color for Christmas. All she wanted was Rugrats figures. After all of that happened, I went to my real dad for the rest of Christmas and to spend time with him and that side of the family. I open all my gifts and get a bunch of cool stuff, toys and some Batman pajamas. Finally, my dad gives me 2 final gifts to open. I open the first box and it's Pokemon Gold and Silver, and I'm already beyond thrilled, thinking it can't get any better than this. I open the next gift and it's a purple Game Boy Color. I could not contain myself. I was so happy, it really felt like a dream come true. After some time with my dad's family, I return home to Karen's house and run inside, excitedly holding up my Game Boy Color, showing my mother and stepdad. Karen sees the Game Boy Color in my hand and immediately storms off to her room and slams the door as hard as she can to not be seen again for the rest of that day/night. Even my mother, who doesn't even bother to defend me, couldn't help but find it funny that her plan to ruin my Christmas had backfired on her. I recently told my dad this story on Christmas this year, and he and I both had a good chuckle over it. Am I the jerk for telling my parents I would not visit them again until they learned sign language? When I was 18, I was in an accident that caused TBI. resulting in me losing most of my hearing in both ears, making me deaf. I didn't qualify for cochlear implants, so being deaf was just my new reality. Obviously, this derailed my life for a while. University got pushed back, and I was depressed for a long time. Eventually, I got back out there, discovered the deaf community, learned ASL, American Sign Language, and at 26, I now feel very content with my life. My parents were devastated by my accident, and our relationship has never been the same. A few years ago, I told them I have embraced being deaf, and I asked them if they would learn American Sign Language, as this is now how I prefer to communicate. They said no at the time because they didn't have time to learn a new language. I've tried many times over the years to try to give them information on deafness and ASL, but they have shown no interest. We communicate now mainly by using voice-to-text on our phones, which is far from perfect and very chaotic when multiple people are talking. Trying to keep up with conversations is exhausting, and people are constantly getting frustrated with me for not following along. Often we watch movies, but they refuse to turn the captions on because it's annoying, despite the fact that it means I can't understand the movie at all. This past Christmas, I once again struggled with conversations, which once again resulted in me being either ignored or yelled at. Before I went home again, I set my parents down and told them that if they did not begin to learn American Sign Language, I would not be visiting again for a long time. I told them I don't expect them to ever be fluent, but I need them to show effort in learning. I told them that they have continuously dismissed my needs as a deaf person, and that if they want to continue to have a meaningful relationship with me, we need to have some kind of shared language. This didn't go over well at all, as my parents accused me of wanting to cut them off, which isn't true. I just can't do any more visits where my presence feels like a burden. My brother and I have been texting since then, and he thinks I'm being hugely unfair. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I can't respond to everyone, but thank you everyone so much for your kind words and support. I've been spending the last few days wondering if I'm being unreasonable or dramatic, as even though my friends, most of whom are deaf, support me, I didn't know what the hearing would think of this. I can now see that my parents are clearly being unfair. Not the jerk. They can't even turn on the captions? What the heck? No, they are being unfair. Also, they either can't or don't want to learn ASL. Either way, you cannot keep accommodating them while they do nothing to accommodate you. You're doing the right thing. Either they will come around or they won't. Just live your life around people who appreciate you and make you happy. I wish you all the best. Not the jerk. I'm furious for you. They find captions annoying? Your post doesn't make it clear if your parents have always been jerks or if they are in some sort of weird denial. In my limited experience, the deaf community really is a community. Find your new village and prosper. Yeah, it ticks me off when people act like that. Asking people to learn even just a little American Sign Language is wildly unfair? The closed captions are annoying? Forget that. What's unfair is someone to get into an accident bad enough to practically lose most of your hearing, and then their family refusing to accommodate, being unsympathetic, yell at them, and actively treat them like a burden for a situation they cannot control. What's annoying is being forced into social situations where they can't understand what's happening besides through body language and maybe context, being excluded and treated like crap. OP, find people who will actually take the time for you. Your family won't take the time for you and didn't when they should have been. Find a new home and a new family, one that you deserve. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that I'll stop paying for everything, including therapy, if he doesn't start looking for a job? My husband, male 32, and I, female 33, have been together for a total of 4 years. He's dealt with depression and anxiety since 2019. He completely shut down, quit his job, sold his car, emptied his savings, and stopped seeing friends and family, and started spending his day doing nothing. Not a thing. None. It took months before realizing he was dealing with a mental health issue, and I've arranged for him to see a therapist. He was against it at first, but then agreed to give it a try. He got better and his quality of life improved. He regained his quality of life. He started going out and became sociable. He bought a new car and did a 180 makeover from hair, clothes, and working out, and even adopted 2 dogs. It was miraculous, and I was happy that he got his life back. Except that he still doesn't work. Not only that, but I used my money to get this transformation done. When I tried to talk to him about finding a job, since he's now doing well, he tried to put the idea off and say he needs more therapy to be ready to start committing to a job and start working. This went on for months, and he jumped from therapist to therapist and still said he's not ready to look for a job, yet goes out with his friends, eats food with them, buys new gadgets, and now a screen to watch his favorite shows. Last night, we had a huge argument after I found out he bought a $200 wristwatch for himself using my credit card. I couldn't handle it, and I shouted at him that it was time for him to find a job. He tried to use the "I'm still not ready for that kind of commitment yet," but I blocked his attempt and told him I'd stop paying for everything, including his therapy. He got mad and replied that threatening to stop paying for everything, even his therapy, will set him back, and we both won't get where we want to be. But I told him he was a hypocrite for saying he's not ready to look for a job since he's living completely normal, and may I say, lavish life. He called me unbelievable and walked out. He called his mom, telling her I was losing it, and she got in the middle, telling me off about what I said, and told me to have some sympathy for him as he's still struggling to regain his strength. But I told her to stay out of it, which caused more rage from my in-laws. They're arranging for a meeting with me, but I don't plan on going, which might make matters worse. I just think at this point he's milking it. Am I the jerk for my stance? What is worse is that now I'm the bad guy in my in-laws' eyes. They accused me of trying to hold his progress back when I said I won't pay for therapy anymore, and financially keep controlling him, and claimed that I'm preventing him from getting better. Not the jerk. Die on this hill, OP. Speak to a lawyer and see what your options are. As it stands, you have a kid, not a partner. Treat him accordingly. How can you be ready for the commitment of a relationship/marriage when you can't commit to going to work for a few hours? His parents should be homing him and helping him if he's that needy, and they're so concerned for his recovery on your dollar. He's riding that gravy train hard. Don't let this continue, OP. This is ridiculous. Not the jerk. He's using you. I have mental health problems. Oh, do I? So I'm not unsympathetic. But no, put on your own oxygen mask first. Your own mental health does not need to suffer in order to help, pamper, or enable your husband. OP. Yeah, this is the reason I said he's living lavishly, at my expense even. I didn't want to be pushy about him finding a job, but right now I feel like he's using excuses, and my in-laws are calling me the unsupportive one after everything I've done. Not the jerk. You signed up for a partner, not a kid, and it's wrong for an adult to get their parents involved in their marital issues. I would go to this meeting and tell your husband and in-laws he can move back home to his parents if he doesn't want to be a responsible adult. My guess is his parents don't want him back, and that's why they're trying to get you to continue being his mother. Not the jerk. Honestly, you need to make sure this man doesn't have access to any of your finances. While he may seem to have done a 180, he's probably just spiraling still. He's getting his serotonin hit by accumulating stuff and via spending money. This won't stop. It will get worse until he actually deals with his issues. Honestly, if his mother wants him back, pack his bags and send him back to her. Pretty sure when he hits her credit cards for hundreds, she'll change her mind. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy ever tried to pull that crap with me, he'd need a new head.
Cold hard cash? Sure thing. Prefacing this with the information that 1. My grandma has too much money. 2. My grandma has too much time. 3. My grandma has too big of a freezer. And 4. My grandma is petty as heck. The story. I have a cousin who's always wanted all sorts of interesting things for his birthday. Grandma loved that. Absolutely adored it. She gave him a turtle ocarina once, and I love it. That should explain her gifting for you. Now, as he grew up, he was less and less inclined to entertain Grandma's whimsical ideas and started requesting more mainstream presents. Grandma hated that and still found ways to make them whimsical. You want a guitar? Okay, but it'll have hippie wood-burning patterns on it. You want bed sheets? Sure thing, but they'll have tie-dye prints all over and be made of silk. If it was possible to make a gift whimsical, Grandma would do it. We all knew this and started getting awfully specific in what we requested until one year he threw his hands up and said, I don't know, just give me cold hard cash. Bad move. Very bad move. Grandma has chest freezers, the kind that are 4 feet deep, 4 feet across, and 12 feet long. Grandma also lives in a little foresty cottage plot, which means Grandma has access to all sorts of gardening tools and tinkers. So Grandma, being Grandma, found a big bucket, a ton of little plastic seed bags, and got to work. Cousin, of course, was very excited to finally get a normal gift and was grinning at Grandma, thinking that he finally won the game. That is, until Grandma brought out a 2x2x2 squared ice cube full of cash. Edited to add, measurements might be off. She used some sort of gardening bucket, and I was very angry when it happened. This story has been retold by Grandma so many times that I don't think she remembers the exact measurements either. It wasn't frozen together either. Oh no. Grandma had gotten creative and layered the ice gradually, freezing the cash solidly through the cube. This thing was icy white and oozing when brought into the room, and Grandma proudly announced that since he wanted cold hard cash, she gave him exactly that. This mad woman froze the equivalent of $1,000 in the ice in mixed money, which were tiny coins and bigger coins and bills in little seed bags near the center. It took the block about a week to melt because my cousin's birthday is in January, and his mother refused to let it melt in the house for the fear of water damage, so it was set in their garage slowly melting. Edited to add, bathtubs aren't common where I'm from, and they didn't have one. Moral of the story, don't mess with Grandma and her whimsical presence.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.